The first time I met Marcus, it wasn't in a romantic setting. He was the personal trainer my best friend Angela swore by. The guy she said changed her life in just 6 weeks. I wasn't particularly looking for a transformation, but I was curious. I had just ended a 5-year relationship with a man who treated me like a fragile vase. Someone who needed to be handled with care, but never really seen for who I was. I didn't want careful anymore. I wanted real, raw, undeniable presence. When Marcus walked into the studio, his very presence felt like gravity. Tall, muscular, and grounded, he had a quiet confidence that didn't need to prove anything. I remember the first time we shook hands. His grip was firm, his palm warm, and when his deep voice said, "Nice to meet you, Evelyn," I felt the ground shift beneath me. At first, I thought it was a harmless crush. Who didn't fall a little in love with the guy helping you lift weights and push your limits? But it wasn't love. Not in the traditional sense. What I felt around Marcus wasn't about candlelight dinners or shared dreams of a white picket fence. It was about how his weight, his actual physical weight, made me feel safe, grounded, anchored. During sessions when he would spot me lifting, his hands lightly on my back or hips to correct posture, I felt it. That heaviness, not just of his body but of his presence. When he demonstrated a lift and I felt the pressure of his body near mine, I felt secure. It was like the chaos in my head finally had something solid to press against. Something unmoving. He started noticing it too. The way I leaned into him a second too long during stretches. The way I requested exercises that required more physical contact. One day during a core workout, I asked him to hold my legs down. When he placed his hands on my thighs, I closed my eyes and breathed in deeply. It wasn't sensual. It was survival. "You okay, Evelyn?" he asked, pulling his hands back slightly. "Yeah. Sorry," I said, blinking up at him. "I just feel calm when you're around." He smiled. "A lot of people say that. Must be the trainer energy." But it wasn't just energy. It was mass. Density. The way he moved, slow and deliberate, never rushed. When we hugged after a particularly tough session, I melted into him. His chest against mine, arms wrapped around me like armor. I didn't want to let go. And when I finally did, I felt untethered. I started finding excuses to see him outside the gym. Coffee after workouts. Brunch on Sundays. He was always kind, always respectful, but never crossed a line. I admired that about him, even though a part of me ached for more. One afternoon, after a particularly intense session, I asked if he could stay a little longer. The gym was mostly empty. We sat on the mats, drinking protein shakes and laughing about a clumsy moment I had on the treadmill. "Marcus," I said after a pause, "do you ever think people confuse physical attraction with emotional need?" He raised an eyebrow. "All the time. Especially in this line of work. You spend time with someone, trust them with your body, you start feeling things. It happens." "That ever happened to you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me for a long moment. "Maybe. Why do you ask?" I swallowed. "Because I think that's what I've been doing. I thought I was falling for you, but I think I'm just addicted to how you make me feel. When you're near, when I feel your weight, it's like everything inside me goes quiet." He didn't respond right away. Then he nodded slowly. "That makes sense. We all seek what calms our storms. Do you think that's unhealthy?" "No," he said gently. "As long as you know what it is. And as long as you don't expect something I can't give." I appreciated his honesty, even if it stung a little. I knew he wasn't offering love. Not romantic love anyway. But he was offering presence. And for a while that was enough. We kept training together. I learned to distinguish between emotional dependency and genuine affection. I started seeing a therapist, something I had avoided for years. I told her about Marcus, and she helped me understand that sometimes we crave things that resemble comfort, even if they're not sustainable. My therapy sessions became a turning point. We talked deeply about my past, about my ex who tiptoed around emotions and never really met me where I was. We talked about my need to be held, both physically and emotionally. My therapist pointed out something that stuck with me. "You don't crave a person, Evelyn, you crave a feeling. And you're chasing it through someone else's body." That hit hard. It wasn't about Marcus at all. It was about what he represented. Stability. Security. Something larger than me, both literally and metaphorically, to hold me down when my world felt like it could float away. One rainy evening, I ran into Marcus at a local bookstore. He was in a hoodie, damp from the rain, with earbuds tucked under the hood. I almost didn't recognize him without his gym attire. We smiled, hugged briefly, and started talking. It wasn't awkward. It felt familiar. Comfortable. "You look lighter," he said, holding a copy of a nutrition guide. "Therapy," I replied with a grin. "And better boundaries." He laughed. "Glad to hear it." We parted with a casual wave, and I walked away realizing how much I had grown. I no longer felt that intense pull toward him. The emotional dependency had lifted. The addiction to his weight had faded into memory, replaced by a sturdier foundation built within myself. A few months later, I started dating someone new. His name was Daniel, a gentle soul with strong arms and a quiet laugh. He wasn't as large or imposing as Marcus, but he held me differently, more attentively, more intentionally. When I rested my head on his chest, it wasn't about escaping the chaos. It was about sharing the stillness. I told Daniel about Marcus one night over dinner. Not in detail, but enough for him to understand the role Marcus played in my life. Daniel smiled and said, "We all have people who help us get through. Sounds like he was your anchor." "Yeah," I nodded. "He was." Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "Well, now you have me. And I'm not going anywhere." It was in that moment I realized love wasn't about weight or presence. It was about emotional resonance. Marcus had unknowingly been a mirror for my inner wounds, a vessel through which I explored what I needed. But Daniel was the real connection, someone I could build with. Marcus and I remained friends. We didn't hug as long anymore. We didn't share protein shakes or talk about emotional need. But we nodded when we passed in the gym. A quiet acknowledgement of what we shared, and what we both moved past. It wasn't love, but it was healing. And sometimes, that's even more powerful. Now, years later, I occasionally flip through old workout journals and find notes from those early sessions with Marcus. My handwriting is messy, the weights are listed precisely, and sometimes there are scribbled thoughts in the margins like, "Felt safe today." It brings a soft smile to my face. Not out of longing, but out of gratitude. Because what I felt wasn't about falling in love with a person. It was about finding the ground beneath my feet. And eventually, I learned to carry that weight on my own.